Robin, obviously a lot of revelations have come about the black Israelites claiming that Jesus Christ himself was black.
The scripture said that.
That's what you said.
Is this going to rock your world, Howard?
Is it rocking my world? Yes. Yes, it is. Wow. Steve the Hitler guy, I don't know what you're talking about. No offense.
Firstly, I don't have a horse in this race. I don't believe Jesus was black, nor do I believe he was white. And ultimately for me, Jesus' skin color is not important. It's not the focus here. For me, in this video, the focus is to highlight the intellectual dishonesty that the Hebrew Israelites operate in order to push their racial agenda. And the focus is to spread Islam. In Islam, it does not matter what race you are. Everybody is welcome. As Muslims, what we believe is that there were black prophets. In fact, prophets of all races, because God sent warners to every nation. So there's no need to be so racially focused at all.
Did you go to public school, or you seem like a pretty intelligent guy? Did you go to college or something?
We went through all the facilities that the white man told us we had to go through.
We've been brainwashed.
We've been brainwashed very well to believe that Jesus Christ was a white man, to believe that the Jews were white, and to believe the apostles were white. We read in the Bible.
Jesus Christ is not white?
No, he's not in Revelation.
You're kidding me.
Okay, let's go to Revelation.
Oh, wait a second, man. I got to challenge that one, man.
This is for everybody. This is for all the listeners who's listening. In Revelations 1 verse 14, it's speaking about Jesus Christ. It says his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as the flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass. What color is brass, Howard?
I would say like a olive.
Brass is a derivative of brown. He was a black man, according to the scriptures.
Wow.
Daniel 10 verse 5 and 6 tells you how his arms and his feet was like in color of polished brass. A black man, according to the scriptures. Daniel 10 verse 5 and 6 tells you how his arms and his feet was like in color of polished brass.
Right, what the Hebrew Israelite did was take a snippet from the verse, literally rather than metaphorically, and he found the snippet which suited his racial agenda. He did not quote the entire verse. If you read the entire verse, you'll realize the intellectual dishonesty quite quickly. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in colour to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. Now use your brain here. If a white supremacist used the exact same methodology as the Hebrew Israelite, namely, take a snippet from this verse, literally, and hide the rest of the verse, the white supremacists could quite easily try and convince people, Christian folk, that Jesus was white. So he or she, may use this part of the verse. And his face as the appearance of lightning. What color is lightning? It's white. Therefore, the white supremacists could quite easily say Jesus was white, using the same intellectual dishonesty. Do you not see the can of worms that the Hebrew Israelite is opening up here? The can of worms of intellectual dishonesty. Let's take it one step further. Beryl. Look at the first part of the verse. His body also was like beryl. Now, I had to look up what beryl was. You may actually have come across beryl in a different form. Green emerald. You may have heard of green emerald. However, according to Wikipedia, beryl is colorless in its pure form. And beryl can come in the following colors when impurities get into it. Green, blue, yellow, red and white. They're the only colors that Wikipedia gave. I'm not saying that those are the exclusive colors of beryl, but notice that white is in there again. The white supremacist may start using that word and use the same methodology as the Hebrew Israelite to convince people that Jesus was white. The green supremacist may start using the same methodology as the Hebrew Israelites and try and start convincing people that Jesus was green. By the way, if there's any green supremacists out there, please do email me. I would be very interested in speaking to you. So, my understanding of this verse is that the author did not mean it to be literal. The author meant it to be metaphorical. If the Hebrew Israelite is insistent on taking the snippet which he thinks that supports the idea that Jesus was black, literally, then he is compelled to take the rest of the verse literally, and then he ends up believing that Jesus's face was white, his body was colorless, and his limbs were brown. Do you not see how ridiculous this is getting?
This is for everybody. This is for all the listeners who's listening in Revelations 1 verse 14. It's speaking about Jesus Christ. It says his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as the flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass. What color is brass, Howard?
I would say like a olive.
Brass is a derivative of brown. Brass is a derivative of brown. Brass is a derivative of brown.
The Hebrew Israelite mentions brown, the color brown. He does realize that many Asian nations are full of brown people too. Indians, many Arabs, Southeast Asians such as Thai people, Indonesian people, Native Americans, many South Americans. So is the Hebrew Israelite going to tell us that based on this verse, based on this snippet that he uses, that Jesus was Indian, Jesus was Sri Lankan? Really? Do you not see how flawed and disingenuous and inconsistent the Hebrew Israelites are?
This is for everybody. This is for all the listeners who's listening in Revelations 1 verse 14. It's speaking about Jesus Christ. It says his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as the flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass. What color is brass, Howard?
For thoroughness, I'm going to quickly touch on his last argument. The Hebrew Israelite, he comes to the conclusion that the rest of the body and the face of this person must be black because the feet are black, according to his understanding, his literal understanding of the verse. However, look at the next verse. The next verse goes further. It actually mentions the countenance. The countenance, for those who don't know, a meaning of countenance is face. And it also mentions other non-literal descriptions of a man. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. Do the Hebrew Israelites believe Jesus had a 2-edged sword coming out of his mouth too? Come on, if they are willing to take one little part of this passage literally to suit their racial agenda, why aren't they not taking this part literally? And the same goes for the part about the 7 stars. Do they literally believe he had 7 stars in his right hand? And for those who are interested in race, here's the big part. His countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. Remember, countenance can mean face. So the white supremacist might pop along and say, the sunshine is white. Therefore, Jesus is white. That's using the exact same methodology as the Hebrew Israelites are using. Snipping something and taking it literally and ignoring the rest of it. Then you may have Japanese and Chinese people argue, wait a minute, the sunshine is yellow. That means Jesus is yellow. Do you not see the problem here? I think you do. The Hebrew Israelites, they've got a racial agenda. Don't be fooled by these people, and don't be fooled by disingenuous arguments. In reality, the colour of Jesus is not important. The colour of any prophet is not important. What is vital is that we all believe in the one God who created us all. He created all races. And that we believe in all the prophets that God sent. Islam offers you this. Come to Islam, people.